Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Off Track Sports. Unfortunately, we were pretty late this week, as you could see. All my years living here in Phoenix, never had this bad of internet issues, but a tower went down near my house, and that's where the headquarters is. Essentially, that's where we do a lot of our content. Is where I live right here, and tower went down, was unable to do the show for a couple of days there. Couldn't even really make phone calls or send text messages hardly. But we're back. Hopefully it doesn't drop at all during the stream. It already dropped a couple of minutes ago right before we went live. So hopefully it keeps on keeping on. But unfortunately we don't have Tyler here this week. Tyler has other stuff he has to do. Unfortunately, a very busy man Tyler is, as we all are. And Cory will actually end up missing next week. You're going to be in Mississippi, I think, right, Cory? We are joined by Cory Wallbanger here.
What's up? Yeah, next 2 weeks I'm in Mississippi, learning some stuff, having fun out there, but then I'll be back.
You were saying right before we went live, you don't know a lot. You don't really watch a lot of college football and don't know about the college football drama, but you might learn about this Lane Kiffin stuff when you go to Mississippi, because they hate Lane Kiffin down there right now in Mississippi.
Yep, I have a coworker who's a good college football fan, and I was sitting there like, so explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. And he went in detail, and I'm like, wow, now I get it. Now that meme makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. It frustrates me. If you all would listen to last week's episode, I talked about Lane and my college football talk, and I will get to my college football talk at the very end of this. But a lot has happened over the last week when it comes to that, especially my thoughts of Lane. You asked me a week ago, loved Lane. I loved him, but after this last week, I've realized why a lot of people hated Lane Kiffin, because I've really gotten into college football over the last couple of years. Didn't really watch a lot when all that Tennessee stuff went down and the USC stuff went down, but now I understand the hate for Lane Kiffin. But Cory, NBA Cup starting up. The Suns are actually in the NBA Cup. They actually surprised a couple people so far, and they have a chance to actually surprise the Thunder this weekend. But Booker's out, man. What happened? What happened? What happened to Booker?
Man, we just can't avoid the injury bug. Jalen Green's out for a month. Now Booker hurt his groin. He's supposed to miss a minimum of a week, which is good news because he's had this injury, I think, 3 out of the last 4 years in December, which is kind of crazy. But he's kind of knows his body now. So he didn't it was weird. He just vanished. We're watching the game. He just vanished. And Peacock wasn't talking about it at all. We're like, what happened to him? Because he's been out for a whole quarter. And then at half, we learned that he was out of the game with a groin injury. And they did an interview with the coach today, and they're like, thank God he knows his body well, because it could have been worse. And usually groin injuries aren't, oh, you're back in a week. It's, oh, you're back in a month. So good thing is he felt it early and he knew to get off the floor, and hopefully he's back for the NBA Cup next Wednesday. And Jalen Green, his window is next Wednesday, but I'm kind of leave it on the safer side and let him rest up so he doesn't get hurt again, because I want to see Booker and Green and Dillon Brooks. That'd be a pretty fun combo.
I like that Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks is cool. I like that Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks, I feel like he looks how Drake thinks he looks. Like he's a tough guy. He's a tough looking guy.
What?
Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense or no?
I get it, but that's a crazy ass comparison to throw out of left field.
I saw him the other day. I'm like, this is how Drake thinks he looks. Like, he kind of looks like Drake, but really tough. Like, this is how Drake thinks he looks. But Dylan,
I get what you're saying. That's wild, though.
I like Dillon Brooks. I like him a lot. Don't y'all got Grayson too, right? You got Grayson.
Oh yeah, that's like the Grayson. Other thing is Grayson's missed the last 2.5 weeks because of a knee contusion. He got kneed really hard in the quad, and it was a nasty quad contusion, and he's finally back. So it's a mix of injuries for us, and we're still looking good. So it's nice to have a good coach and a team that hustles because we haven't had that the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, the Suns look better than they've looked the last couple of years, but one team that's been looking not themselves over the last, I'd say, maybe 2 seasons is the Bucks. I feel like Giannis has to fully carry that team, and that's kind of been the story over there for a while. Because they ever since they lost Middleton, you'd say, right? I'd say ever since they lost Middleton, they haven't really been quite the same team. Giannis has to carry them, and there
I
was
think
what's up?
I think they won the championship and then it fell off from there. Like I think it's kind of been they've lost their mojo after they won the championship. And I mean, then Middleton left. Then they invested in Lillard.
Yeah, it didn't
They
work
made
out.
the playoffs with Lillard, but that team never looked dominant.
No.
And then they let Lillard go after the injury. And I think what's been reported now is that's the move that irritated him. He was like, now basically, I don't know. They traded Middleton for nothing almost. I mean, and I know they got Kuzma, but I don't know. It's like they had a core and they traded it away, and now Giannis is just sitting here with a sinking ship and Miles Turner, and he's just like, I want out. So I know they haven't said he specifically wants out, but he wants out. He asked for a trade in the offseason.
He wants out, yeah. He
Where do
definitely
you
wants
think
out.
he's going to end up?
Yeah, he definitely wants out. It's been rumored and talked about for probably about I think since last year's trade deadline. This has really kind of been chattered about a little bit that he's like at least entertaining. Shams Charania has talked about it a lot, and I think the Bucks even came out and said that's a lie. And Shams Charania doesn't lie. This guy is always 100%. But where does he go? We were talking about it like very briefly before. Like the Lakers are always going to be a team for sure. I think the Heat would potentially be pretty interesting. I think that would be pretty cool. The Wizards could use him. We could use him. He'd be great he'd be great for the Wizards. He would already be the greatest Wizards player of all time right when he joined. And yes, I do include Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan was not good for the Wizards. Anybody that has a mind knew that Michael Jordan was not good for the Wizards. But
there's one sleeper team that I think isn't going to be talked about.
Maybe
enough.
the Knicks.
Right now, I know the Knicks. I know the Knicks are like the number one team being talked about right now.
The Nets.
Because of like they can trade Cap.
The Nets.
Or they can trade Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart or something like that. No. I think the Spurs is low key a really
that shouldn't be allowed
hidden matchup because then you could compare. You can keep De'Aaron Fox. You can have Wemby and you could have Giannis, and you could trade 3 firsts, Castle, and filler, and it could be enough to get it done. The only thing is like Giannis is probably going to be the biggest trade package in forever. So I almost feel like nothing is enough when you're trading Giannis. But to be fair, unless you're the Lakers, you can get Luka for a bag of chips and Anthony Davis's knee, so anything can happen. But dude, imagine Giannis, Wemby, and De'Aaron Fox. As a Suns fan, that would scare me.
No, that's domination. I feel like Giannis probably wants to go to like a big market though. Don't you? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like he'd want to go to like LA or Miami or New York, maybe Chicago, maybe. I think he'd want to go to.
I just can't think of trade packages those teams could give other than New York.
I mean, maybe the Clippers.
The Bucks would want.
Maybe the Clippers.
The Clippers don't own any of their picks, or I don't know specifically, but they still the SGA trade. They don't own their pick this year, so the Clippers are ass, and the Thunder have their pick.
I like the Thunder more when they were the Supersonics. I miss the Supersonics.
Yeah,
man.
so
those are badass jerseys. Seattle still want that team for sure, but yeah, I don't know where Giannis goes. It's very interesting because he's just such a big. There's only a handful of teams that could probably give enough to get him without completely dismantling their whole entire organization. I think there's probably
I like the Miami shout.
Yeah, I just
don't know what that trade package would be.
Yeah, I think the Heat would be like the perfect place for Giannis. I think that would be like the perfect fit for Giannis would be. But yeah, I agree with you, and I don't watch NBA quite enough to know what would be the perfect or like the good trade package, like you're saying for Giannis. But Giannis is just he's special, man. I wouldn't say he's the best player in the NBA today. If you asked me a couple years ago, I probably would have said yeah, he's the one. But I would at this point there's a couple more international guys I would put above him at this point, like Joker and Luka. I'd probably put both of them ahead of Giannis. But Giannis is a top 5 guy.
Mm.
But him and Wemby, oh, that's scary. That's not fair. Oh, maybe the Magic. Oh, the Magic. Orlando Magic.
Didn't they trade? I think they traded like 4 firsts for Desmond Bane, so I don't think
that's
they'd be
true.
able to do it.
That's true. Valid. I forgot about that. That was a dumb trade. I mean, Bane's good though, but
Bane's killing it with them to be fair, but I don't
know if that was the exact number. I don't remember.
There's a couple players in the league that are worth 4th first round picks, and I'm one that can't really talk. We traded 10 first round picks for Kevin Durant for 2.5 years, so yeah.
I knew that was dumb when that got made. I knew that was a bad one when that got made. Yeah. All right, let's get to some football though. Let's get to some NFL chatter because there's been some stuff that happened during Thanksgiving weekend. One of the things that actually happened, very interesting. I don't know if you actually heard about this, Cory, but the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, Kevin Patullo, actually got his house egged over Thanksgiving weekend after by Eagles fans after their Black Friday loss, which leads us to our first graphic of the day. The Philly offense is getting cracked. This Philly offense is not performing well and has not done well over the last couple of weeks. Over the last 4 games, Saquon Barkley, who last year was an MVP candidate, has not had a very strong year. Over the last 4 games, he has a total of 221 yards, 3.1 yards per carry, and not a single rushing touchdown for Barkley over the last 4 games. And then Jalen Hurts only has 4 touchdown passes over the last 4 games and 3 rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. So he hasn't had a horrible last couple of games, but it has not been very great either. I don't know where the passing yards are. That's a fuck up on my graphic right there. But the Eagles offense is not looking good. The defense has overall looked pretty great all year. It seemed like the Bears rushing attack was able to figure them out on Black Friday. We'll talk about the Bears in a second, but I wanted to start with the Eagles. But I don't know what's going on with them. They don't look that good over the last couple of weeks, while the Cowboys are trying to catch up to them in the NFC East. The Cowboys look like potentially one of the best teams in the NFL, while the Eagles look like they have potentially one of the worst offenses in the NFL at the current moment. Cory, what's going on? The defending champs, like what's going on with the Eagles here? The Eagles fans are upset.
Man, I love sports with a passion, but dude, how do you win a Super Bowl, be 8-4, and egg your offensive coordinator? What, dude? Like,
it's the Eagles fans. They're the worst fans in football.
Rebuild after rebuild after rebuild as a Cardinals fan with no hope right now other than Trey McBride. And I'm not throwing eggs at anybody's house. I would like Drew Petzing to be gone. I'm sick and tired of his terrible offense, but man, that's crazy. That graphic you had was hilarious, dude. But dude, I'm an Eagles fan, my coworker's an Eagles fan, and me and him talk about the Eagles a lot. And I have Devontae Smith on fantasy football teams. I have AJ Brown on fantasy football teams.
Yeah.
And it's just like Jalen Hurts very inconsistent this year for some reason, his passing at least.
Yeah.
And he's missing Devontae Smith when he's open. AJ Brown's being a little dramatic in the locker room every now and then, which I don't think matters too much, but the media wants to talk about it. And honestly, what me and my coworker have talked about is that it just feels like they play the game right now like they think they know it better than you.
Mm-hmm,
It doesn't matter what the scoreboard is. They're focused on not turning the ball over. So when they're down 2 or 3 touchdowns, it just seems like their momentum, like when they were down, they didn't start ramping it up until the fourth quarter when they were down by 2 scores. And it's like, I don't know, man. I'm a fan of the teams that are just like, I want to kill you and not play in the fourth quarter. Like I don't want to play my starters the whole game. Not, I'm just going to focus for 60 minutes on not turning the ball over, and that's how we're going to play. And to be honest, that's what got them a Super Bowl, and that's why they're 8-4. But like, there's certain matchups where you just can't play that way. And I know the Bears matchup was one, and I think the week before that against the Cowboys was another one where it's just like they got beat because they played the exact same way. And I think it's not going to keep happening, but I don't think they're not going to keep losing, but I don't think they're going to change their offense at all. There's going to be games where they blow teams out, and it works out, but I just don't see Horizon. I don't see them changing how they're playing their offense right now, and it sucks. And obviously, a lot of it changes because Saquon's not going off.
Yeah, Saquon has not performed up to, I think, what we expected of him. And I wouldn't 100% put that on Saquon. I think that's a mixture of the Patullo maybe not doing the best job at offensive coordinator. That's a mixture of Jalen Hurts not playing the best at quarterback, because when your quarterback plays better, your running back plays better. When your running back plays better, your quarterback plays better because you can use the play action and play around with all that stuff. So I think that's definitely been an issue with Saquon as well. But yeah, it's been a tough watch, honestly, all year when it comes to the Eagles' offense. They've been kind of just living off their, in my opinion, a top 5 defense. Definitely didn't look like a top 5 defense against Chicago. Definitely against Chicago, that the running game of Chicago just really figured out Philly for sure. But yeah, it's disappointing to see. I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of the Eagles, but I respect when a team is really good, and this team definitely has the talent. And they also fight through all the adversity. Like, I respect the crap out of Nick Sirianni, because I feel like everybody is always talking crap about Nick Sirianni, even though he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and he's been one of the best coaches in the NFL for quite a while. I do agree with the fans' displeasure of Patullo, maybe not egging the guy's house. I think that's taking it a little bit far, but I definitely understand the displeasure with Patullo, because I don't think Patullo has done the best job for the Eagles this season. But we'll have to see if they figured it out. But I was saying they were struggling against the Bears, and the Bears might be the real deal this season. I can't believe I'm saying that, but they had a fantastic game. I got a graphic right here for it. Bears are good, better, best. Of course, some of y'all have heard the chant that Ben Johnson's done. Apparently, I think it comes from Pee Wee football or something like that. It comes from his childhood. I can't remember if it's a Pee Wee football chant that his coach used to do, or a high school football coach that used to do that chant, and he's kind of just brought it with him wherever he's gone. My good is better, better is best. Something like, I can't recite it myself, but it's pretty badass. I fucks with it. But the Bears have looked fantastic. Got some interesting stats right here over the last 10 games. Obviously 9-1. Caleb Williams this season, 10 out of 12 games, Caleb Williams this season has over 200 rushing combined with pass yards. Last season, all of 2024, he only had 9 games, the whole entire season, where he had 200 rush plus passing yards, total yards for Caleb Williams. And then the Bears are second in rush yards this season, with over 1,800 yards on the season, with their fantastic one-two punch they got of DeAndre and Kyle out there. They look good. And Ben Johnson kind of brought what he did in Detroit with him to Chicago. The first couple of weeks definitely looked rough, and I think people are already counting out the Bears, mainly because we've seen this with the Bears many times. They bring in somebody new, bring in a bunch of new people, everybody gets excited, and then the Bears struggle. They end up struggling, and it doesn't work out, and whoever came in gets fired, and then they start the whole process over. So I think a lot of people were thinking that was going to happen, but then they've been just killing it. And like I said, Ben Johnson brought the same thing he did from Detroit with Sonic and Knuckles, with Gibbs and Montgomery. He's kind of done the same thing over here in Chicago, and they look great. and they have a vibe about them. Oh, that's the wrong graphic right there, but here's a picture of the locker room from the Chicago Bears Twitter. Of course, a lot of y'all saw that video of him ripping off his shirt, Ben Johnson, and flexing, and it was actually ended up winning a bunch of hot dogs for the city. And I think it's called Wiener Circle. I think that's the name of the place that gave out a bunch of free hot dogs. I think that's what it's called. Gave out a bunch of free hot dogs. That was like a deal when they hired Ben Johnson. If Ben Johnson takes off his shirt, the whole city gets free hot dogs, and that's what happened. So good on Ben Johnson on doing that. But Cory, how are we feeling about the Bears? Like, this is the best I've ever seen. This is the best version of the Bears I've seen my entire life.
Yeah, I grew up a Brian Urlacher fan. I mean, I was a Cardinals fan, but I was a fan of Brian Urlacher, so I've always liked the Bears a little bit. But yeah, they're killing it this year. It's kind of an underdog story. It's always good to see teams that have struggled for a while be good. Like, I remember when the Lions first took off, everyone was excited to watch that offense and excited to see them be successful. And I feel like it's kind of the same vibe with the Bears right now. And
for sure,
it's nice to see them be successful. It's nice to see DeAndre Swift get a resurgence and Kyle Benungai go off. And, I mean, their team's just playing great. They're being coached well. And the Eagles were largely considered the best team in the NFL 2 weeks ago. And they just beat them in prime time. The only Black Friday game there was, and they beat them on live TV. So it's good to see. And my only concern is I personally don't believe Caleb Williams is good enough to win a Super Bowl. I'm rooting for him. I hope he proves me wrong. But
not yet.
It's obviously not going to happen this year. But I don't know. I think that one stat, and this is like fantasy football nerd stat, is that Rome Odunze, I think, has like 40% of his targets are uncatchable. So it's one of those things that it's just like, geez, like, yeah, it's an issue. So they're not perfect, but it's awesome to see them be competitive because it's been so long. You know, it just sucks that they got better before the Cardinals did, you know?
I would agree with you 100% on the Caleb take, though, because I definitely have seen a lot of improvement out of Caleb. I do think he's one of the best playmakers in the NFL. It's just the question is he able to take that next step and become an elite passer? And I think that's probably his accuracy is just horrible. I think that's where he lacks.
Yep.
Is he doesn't have good accuracy. He did have one great pass. I think it was to Komet, the touchdown on Black Friday. He like a perfect rainbow pass on the move, like dropped it into a bucket and Komet scored. I think it was to Komet, but he's definitely made some good passes and I've seen some flashes and he's a fantastic playmaker. And I think with my voice cracked right there, but I think with Ben Johnson being the head coach of the Bears, I see Caleb Williams improving a lot. I see that Josh Allen trajectory. I don't think he's going to be as good as Josh Allen, mainly because he doesn't have the same body type as Josh Allen. Josh Allen's able to run over people and able to do all this extra stuff that I don't think Caleb can quite do. But Caleb has a slightly different skill set, and I think he has that sort of trajectory. I'm not saying that's what he's going to be. I'm saying he has that sort of potential. Kind of reminds me of Kyler a couple of years ago. Like I think it was 2021 when Kyler almost had that MVP sort of season. Caleb right now is reminding me of that version of Kyler where he can just climb the ladder and just become a better quarterback. But I would say right now, I don't think Caleb Williams necessarily is good enough to win a Super Bowl. But we've seen some bad quarterbacks, average quarterbacks win the Super Bowl before. So I'm not going to 100% count him out. Like we've seen, like Nick Foles, we've seen him win a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco went on the greatest run in his career and won a Super Bowl. There's been a lot of average sort of guys and okay guys that have won Super Bowls. So I think I think the Bears can compete. But I personally don't. I agree with you, though. I don't think he's quite good enough to do that yet.
It's only year two. This is no knock against him. It's only year two. So the likelihood of them being 9-3 and winning the Super Bowl this year is very, very slim. But, I mean, he's improved 17 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Like, that's for the second-year quarterback being and 3 and having a 17-5 line, you can't ask for much better than that. You can ask for more accurate passing, but you're 9-3. You're leading the division. You're leading the NFC. Like, he's doing good. Like, there's nothing that Bears fans can complain about right now.
Yeah, they look good. And the second-year quarterbacks, I think, have been a big talking point this week and over the last couple of weeks, really all season. The second-year quarterbacks, like, of course, you have J.J. McCarthy and his struggles, and the backup over there. I think he was undrafted. The rookie out of Minnesota, Max Brosman, I think that's his name. Damn, he struggled.
Yeah.
I felt bad for that kid. He looked like Carson Wentz Jr. out there. I felt really bad for him out there. He made some wild passes, but that's one of them. Drake May, he could win the Super Bowl, win MVP. He's phenomenal this year. Jayden Daniels been injured a lot. I forgot to even mention this to you, Cory. Like, I'm pretty mad because it seems like that Washington's gonna play Jayden Daniels this week when Washington are 3-8. Like, Jayden Daniels finally a full participant. Yeah, he's finally a full participant in practice, and I 100% get Jayden Daniels as a football player and he wants to play football, but he's the franchise. Give me your quick thoughts on that, Cory, because this guy, I don't know. Jayden Daniels is the franchise, and there's no chance of Washington making the playoffs this year. I think he's just sit down for the rest of the year because he keeps on getting hurt. He's gotten hurt a couple of times this year already.
I kind of have two different answers for that question, though. My first answer is if you're healthy and you're cleared and you're confident enough to play football, I feel like you should play. That was what your contract score was. That's my opinion. But his situation, like, I don't know. It's like a bizarre incident, dude. His arm bent the other way, and he just got super lucky. And I know it's not his throwing arm, but why rush it? You know what I mean? I wouldn't want Jayden to play. I would just let him heal up and restart next year because it's not like they're going to make the playoffs. So it's like two answers. It's kind of arguing myself there, but like if he's cleared and he's healthy and he wants to play, it's his decision. I know the team needs to manage him for the future so they can step in and say, hey, we're not going to play you this week. It's not a good matchup. Then do it. But I don't know. I like what Joe Burrow said when he came back. He's like, if I eliminated from the playoffs or not, I have fans that root for me and want to see me on the field, and it's my job to play football while I can. I'm going to play. So that's my opinion on it. You're getting paid. If you want to play, get in there. But if Jayden wants to play, let him play. But I'm with you as a fan of a team that isn't playing for anything anymore, that we need to be safe. So I get the two point of views. The player makes the decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get that. The player makes the decision. I know if Jayden Daniels wants to play football, he's going to play football. There's nothing I could really do to stop him. And I get the Joe Burrow one a little bit more because the AFC North is just a struggle show. No one wants to win the AFC North right now. So the Bengals actually still have a good shot at winning the AFC North. So I would understand definitely him. But it's just the Washington quarterback position, I feel like, is just a cursed. It's a different, like, you have the Browns, the quarterback slot for the Browns is cursed, but Washington, it's cursed in a different way. Like, the Browns have really only had one great quarterback in their history, and that was Otto Graham. Washington had an amazing quarterback who did everything back in the day, slinging Sammy Baugh, one of the best NFL players of all time, I would say, slinging Sammy Baugh. And ever since Sammy Baugh, there has been a handful of amazing Washington quarterbacks that have all had their career end due to injury. This is no shots at Doug Williams, but I wouldn't include Doug Williams in this. He was a really good quarterback, but not a franchise or a quarterback that's going to give you a lot more years. That's extremely talented, that had their career end due to injury. Like, you have Joe Theismann, you have Robert Griffin III, RG3, you have Alex Smith. There's three great quarterbacks right there that didn't get to finish their career the correct way, the way they wanted to, due to injury. And all three of those quarterbacks probably should have and could have retired as Washington quarterbacks. and 2 of those 3 didn't end up retiring as Washington quarterbacks because of their injuries, and that being Alex Smith and RG3. I don't think Theismann went anywhere. I think Theismann retired after his injury. It was a career-ending injury, if I remember correctly. Wasn't alive then, but it's a big-time stat or moment in history for Washington football. And I would just hate Jayden Daniels to be part of that statistic with Washington quarterbacks. In my opinion, there hasn't been a great Washington quarterback that hasn't had his Washington career ended by injury since Sammy Baugh, and that was 70 years ago, 60 years ago, before there was a Super Bowl. So I don't know. I don't think Jayden Daniels should play. If I'm the doctors, if I'm Dan Quinn,
another thing to think about is Marcus Mariota's been playing really good.
He's been playing great.
So that's another reason why I just take my time with it, because you're not playing for anything, and Mariota's actually looking really good. And he's a year 2 quarterback. That's why I feel like you can compare it almost to the Kyler situation, except Kyler, they're probably moving on from him.
Yeah,
so that's another reason why they're not rushing him back. But if Jacoby was throwing 20 picks a game and playing terrible, they'd be like, oh my God, we need Kyler back, even though we're 3-9. Come on, hurry up. Like, it's a different vibe when the quarterback who is playing now is playing good. The Cardinals just can't finish a game, and Jayden Daniels is healthy enough-ish to play. It's just nothing to play for. But Mariota's been awesome, so that's good.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota,
Commanders fans.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota is a good quarterback. I still feel like he never really got a great enough shot to be a starter. He had his opportunity in Tennessee. I think he was there for like 2 years, didn't quite work out. I think he had an opportunity in Oakland when the Raiders were in Oakland. I think he had an opportunity there. And I think he ended up losing out to Derek Carr. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. Because that's when Derek Carr was struggling, and then I think Derek Carr ended up picking it up after that and almost had an MVP season and got hurt, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure if that was before or after that. I can't remember. But I remember he was competing for the Oakland starting job at one point. And I think he's a great quarterback. Maybe he should be a starter in the league somewhere. But that's one of the reasons why I don't think Jayden Daniels should play. I don't think Jayden Daniels should play. I'm worried he's going to get hurt again. But you were talking about Kyler and Jacoby. And Jacoby Brissett, he has been balling. This guy, he might have earned himself a starting job again in the NFL. He's had his opportunities at other spots with Indianapolis. I think he started a couple of games for New England. I think he started a game or 2 for Washington when he was in Washington. So he's kind of moved around a bunch, kind of like the new Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's actually a good comparison. He's kind of like the new Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jacoby Brissett. He's a very talented quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think he's a good he could be a good transitional guy for Arizona, I would say. I got a little graphic over here. Rocket arm to the moon for Jacoby Brissett. Over his last 7 starts, he has very comparable stats to MVP contender Drake May, which I found very interesting. Obviously, he has a lot more passing attempts, has almost 100 more passing attempts over the last 7 starts. I will say that. But over almost around 500 more passing yards than Drake May, has the same TD interception ratio, averaging over 300 passing yards a game over the last 7 games. That's pretty fucking nuts, and that's number 1 in the NFL over Jameis Winston and Dak Prescott. But one issue for the Cardinals this year has been the offensive line. The offensive line is complete garbage. Yep. Cory, I know, I knew you were going to agree with me on that, because Jacoby has started 7 games, but yet he's tied for 11th in sacks. That should not be happening. I had to double check that a couple of times, because I'm like, what? This guy is getting killed on a weekly basis. But what's your thoughts on Jacoby, Cory?
Man, if you talk about the Cardinals, and I get a lot of thoughts in my brain that I'm trying to organize. Jacoby's been playing great. There's no arguing that. I'm super happy for him, because when we picked him up, the goal was, we definitely have one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL for if Kyler has to miss 3 games. Not this scenario where he's playing really good and
he's taking
now half the fan base wants Kyler gone, half the fan base or I think it's more like 30% of the fan base wants to keep Kyler. 70% is like, okay, it's over. We need to move on. It's been too long and we've done nothing. And it just opens up a whole can of worms that I'm like, I have to dissect and figure out, because I don't think Kyler's the problem still. I don't know if he's ever going to win us a Super Bowl, but he's our best chance at it, talent-wise. I just think, looking at the Cardinals organization in a whole, we've always had fundamental issues, but like, we have so many good offensive weapons. Marvin Harrison Jr., when healthy, is great. Michael Wilson, I've always thought he was good. He had injury history coming out of college. We've barely found out that he's really fucking good if we actually throw him the ball. And then we have Trey McBride, who's debatably the best tight end in football. But you know what we did? We didn't draft any offensive linemen. We didn't sign any offensive linemen. And we run a run-first offense. And it's like, it makes no sense. And that's what I was saying all offseason. I think we have talent to be good. We invested in the defense. There are a lot of good rookies. This Cardinals team could be really good on paper, but we don't run it the right way. And that's why the thing is, like, we're not far from being great. If you look at all of our games, we lost by 3. We lost in overtime. We lost by a field goal. I think we went the first 7 or 8 weeks, and we were 2-5 and lost all 5 games by one by 3 points or in the last minute or something like that. If the game would have ended at 59 minutes and 50 seconds, we would be 5-2 instead of 2-5. And it's like a crazy stat like that. It's just mismanaged football in all fronts for the Cardinals. We have a foundation. It's just mismanaged football. And it sucks because I thought Gannon was the answer, but we're 3-9, and you can tell his attitude and his motivation has changed, because I think he knows he's either getting canned or I don't know.
I don't think
you can see it in his interviews. They ask, is a player, how's this injury? Okay. He literally just responds with one word now when people are asking about Marvin's injury, Trey Benson's injury. It's just, I know I'm going to end my rant there, but it's like, I know it's so hard to be a Cardinals fan. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is a good transitional quarterback if we do move on for Kyler. That's a perfect way to use it. I believe in Kyler. I'd like to bring them both back and actually become a pass-first offense with what we have. But if we don't bring Kyler back, keep Jacoby. He's the starter next year, and draft your franchise guy, whether it's in the first or second round. If you have a guy, hold on to him. You know what I mean? But that's what I would say. I think he's definitely earned either the starting Cardinals job next year, depending on what we do, or I don't know. I feel like there's some teams out there that, like, I'd rather have Jacoby as the Vikings quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, there's some opportunity for him, and I'm happy for him.
I don't know. I don't think Kyler stays. I think Kyler gets traded in the offseason. I think somebody's going to give up something for Kyler, because I agree with you. I do think that there is something there with Kyler still. I do think he has talent. I think there's something in there that I can even maybe see him still getting it done with the Cardinals, but everything that's happened over the last couple of years with him and the Cardinals, I think it's almost like a toxic sort of place at this point, probably for Kyler. Yep. That's what I would think. I don't think Kyler would want to be there anymore, even if the Cardinals wanted him there. I think Kyler is over it, even if the Cardinals would want him. But I think this is a mutual separation at this point. I think the Cardinals don't want Kyler, and I don't think Kyler wants to be on the Cardinals anymore. I guess we'll see about that. Any teams you think would be in the market for Kyler? Be maybe looking to make a trade?
There's definitely a handful, to be honest. I would say that when you got, like, what I think about when I think about Kyler was he was debatably an MVP for 10 games, and then teams figured out Cliff Kingsbury's offense because he was a head coach and an offensive coordinator. So when people figured it out, he was a first-time NFL coach. He got read like a book, and we went like 1-8 the rest of the year and got destroyed in the playoffs. So, but Kyler can be that guy, and it's still signs still show that he can be that guy. But that's why I think it's offensive scheme. But I understand they should be traded. If he was to be traded, a lot of people. I think you're the one that says McCarthy stays. That's their guy. But, dude, he has been the worst rookie starting quarterback I've seen in forever. And and this week, I think a lot of people think this week and this next 2 weeks, it's his chance at having a career in the NFL these next 2 weeks. So the Vikings I know a lot of people aren't going to agree, but Kyler with Justin Jefferson and their 2 running backs that they have in Minnesota, and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, and that defense isn't terrible. It would be an immediate reset for them.
I think
depending on how much they'd be willing to trade. The Jets, I don't think you would agree with this, but the Steelers could do it.
The Raiders are what I'm thinking.
We got the Raiders. The Raiders is a good one because Gino's been an absolute failure over there. And then, the Shador thing's a hype news, but the Browns could do it too for the right price.
Yeah, I could. I don't know. I would hope not the Steelers. It's not like I'm against Kyler. I really don't think he would be a great fit. Well, we also need a lot of changes on our offense. So maybe if we switched around I wouldn't want to go into the offseason being like, as a Steelers fan, being like, we're going to get all these different players and center the team around Kyler. And that's what we would have to do to really fit in Kyler, because I don't think Kyler would fit in at all with our current offense as the way it operates. But I can see Kyler in Cleveland. The number one place I have him is Vegas. I can see him playing for the Raiders and playing in Vegas. I think that would be a great place for him. I wasn't really thinking about the Jets, but they already had it kind of set up for Justin Fields, and Tyrod Taylor is doing pretty well over there for the Jets. So that might be the perfect fit for him. But the only issue I have with the Jets for him is the media stuff, and I don't think Kyler is the best. I mean, he's good when he speaks, but he gets a lot of attention on him. I don't know. I feel like he gets given a lot of shit more than other players.
Dude, that's another thing, man. That fucking stupid gaming contract shit. That's what soured this thing too. I know it was media, but when our owner forced that into the contract, that was writing on the wall right there. And obviously, as a fan, then I'm like, let's just move on. That's not that big of a deal. But dude, honestly, now that the situation is getting, I don't know, sour, you look back at that moment and go, damn, dude, that could have been a reason. But yeah, no, I honestly forgot your question, to be honest. This whole thing, I'm like, it gets me working on different levels, because I'm like, it's not just this year. It's so much deeper and longer than that, and mismanaged football team over and over and over again.
Yeah, it's been a struggle to watch the Cardinals over the last couple of years, especially when it seemed like they were on the up and up. It seemed like they were one of the best young teams, and they had a lot of promise, and kind of all of that has went away over the last, I'd say, 3 seasons or 4 seasons. Because 2021, 2022, the future looked bright for the Cardinals, and now it looks very bleak and looks like they're going to have to reset and rebuild once again. They have to rebuild once.
I'm rooting for Kyler, though, whatever happens, though, because Kyler's a good person. He does a lot of stuff out here for us. So I hope whatever happens, I hope if he's back, I'm happy. And if he goes and kills it somewhere else, I'm rooting for him there, too, because he's a good person. So.
All right, but let's move on to our weekly segment with Grok. Each week, I like to ask Grok a question on whether it's an opinion or seeing the future. And this week we have decided to have Grok see the future. Grok can see the future, and let's see what we're going to ask Grok today. Let me pull up Chrome here. There we go. All right. Let's see. What should we ask Grok here today? Let's ask Grok what the biggest upset could be for Week 14. Grok, what upset could you see happen for week 14 of the NFL? Question mark. All right, let's see what Grok has to say on this, and then me and Cory will have our own little discussion about who could be a potential upset for this week of the NFL. Because we have some good matchups this weekend, and we could have some big upsets this weekend. Because we've had a lot of teams. It's been a weird year, Cory, when it comes to like up and downs. We've had a lot of teams just be up and down, like play. Like the Bills have been one of the biggest examples for that for me. I feel like the Bills really kind of almost played down to their competition. Eagles kind of do that as well. They kind of just play down to their competition. The Steelers play up to their competition. Same thing with the Panthers. So it's very, very interesting. We've seen it throughout the years. Grok is really thinking hard about this. It's compiling all the game details, thinking really, really hard about this one. Really wants to make sure it gets this one right. It's even going over the Bears. It looks like it's taking a look over at the Bears Packers right now, but I wouldn't say that one's an upset. We'll see if that's what they name. Oh, this is they talk about the Cowboys. That's one they bring up. Let's see. Looking at the week 14 slate, there are several matchups that scream upset potential based on recent trends, injuries, and defensive matchups. I'll highlight 3 that stand out. Okay, so it gave us 3. Dallas Cowboys over the Lions, which actually is just starting right now. Thursday night football going on right now. We're going to finish up this live. I'm going to send Cory on his way here in a second so he can watch some Thursday night football. But the Cowboys over the Lions is an upset in some people's eyes. Me and Cory, I think, both think the Cowboys are going to win tonight. The Bengals over the Bills, I could definitely see that. The Bengals look very strong right now. The Bills play down to their competition. And then the Texans look like the best version of the Texans over the last season and a half. I would say looks like the rookie CJ Stroud again out there over the Chiefs, who have been very up and down. So I can see any of those upsets really happening, Cory. What are your thoughts on these potential upsets from that Grok have listed here?
I think you already said that I think the Cowboys can beat the Lions. I don't know, something's telling me that that's going to happen. Even though I think you and me were both hoping the Lions win, but I think the Cowboys are turning it on as of late. And then the Texans and Chiefs, that'll be a good one because I think the Texans defense is the best in the NFL right now. Like the Eagles are up there, but they're going through injuries. The Texans are killing it right now.
It looks like Cory froze here for me. Hopefully it's not my connection. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential upsets. I think there's a lot of big-time potential upsets for this weekend. I'm really looking at that Bengals versus Bills. That's one I'm definitely taking a look at. Bengals versus Bills. I really think that could be a pretty huge upset because Joe Burrow's back. Joe Burr, he's back. And the Bengals are trying to get themselves an AFC North title and get themselves into the playoffs. So I can definitely see the Bengals pulling an upset on the Buffalo Bills, who have, like I said, they kind of play down to their competition. They need to really stop doing that, but they kind of play down to their competition quite a bit. So I would say that's probably the upset I'm leaning towards, would be Cincy over Buffalo. I can definitely see that happening. But it looks like I don't know if my internet went down or not, but it looks like I've lost Cory for at least momentarily. But let's move on to the playoff picture, because the playoffs are getting very interesting for the NFC and for the AFC. Very close, very interesting races. We have division races. We have a couple of teams lurking, if you will, down on the bottom of the screen. Let me take off the off-track logo so you can view the other teams in the AFC that are lurking, looking to make the playoffs. We have some interesting battles for divisions right now. The Jags, I was about to say the Cowboys, the Jags, the Colts, and the Texans are all battling for the AFC South. That's a very tough division this year. The Jags and the Colts are both at 8-4. The Texans are at 7-5. Looks like that was the sound of Cory, I guess, maybe disconnecting from the Discord there. But very close battle for the AFC South. The AFC North is a great battle, but honestly, it seems like nobody wants to win the AFC North at the moment. My Steelers started off the year 4-1. Now we're 6-6, not having a great time right now, not doing the greatest on the offense, and I'll talk about that here in a second about the Steelers offense. But definitely the AFC North has been a struggle so far for the Steelers and the Ravens. The Ravens coming back though. They didn't do the greatest last week. Lamar Jackson has kind of struggled a little bit, but they've gotten a couple of wins down, and they're right there in the AFC North lead again over there on the AFC side. The Bills still trying to catch up to the Patriots. The Dolphins are still technically alive. I personally don't see the Dolphins making it, but they are still technically alive. And of course, you always have the Chiefs, who are still in the hunt right there as well. The Chargers are quietly very good this season as well at 8-4. They've been very quiet, but they have done well. The Bears have probably been the big surprise of the year. Ben Johnson's really turned around the Bears for sure. They're leading the NFC. The Rams look very good. Same thing with the Seahawks. They look quite good as well. I messed up something here. I think I messed up the records. Yeah, because the Rams are at 9-3, and I messed that up. The Rams are at 9-3. The Seahawks are at 8-4. So that's my mistake right there. Then the NFC West looks very competitive. Other than of course the Cardinals, it could be the Rams, Seahawks, or the Niners winning the division. The Packers are right there. The Cowboys have gotten themselves back into the playoff discussion. The game tonight between the Lions and the Cowboys, that's just starting right now, really. That's a big time game because the loser of that game could potentially say goodbye to the playoffs. And then I've been very interested in the Panthers. I think the Panthers are a very good team, a very underrated team, and Bryce Young has really finally figured it out. But I think we have some great playoff battles heading into these last couple of weeks here before we start the playoffs. Great divisional battles because the Bucks could lose that division to the Panthers as well. So it's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the playoff picture right now. I think I'm personally, first of all, I am a Steelers fan, but I think I'm most personally interested in that AFC North because it doesn't seem like the Ravens or the Steelers want to win the division, and the Bengals honestly look like the best team in the division right now. They're going to obviously need some help, but they can still get it. They can still get the division. I've been very disappointed in my Steelers as of late, and I haven't been the only one. There are actually some of you that are Steelers fans, and some of you that are just big NFL fans may know. I think it's the start of the fourth quarter. They like to play Renegade every single time at the Steelers games at Heinz Field. I will always call it Heinz Field. It's still Heinz Field to me, even though there isn't a big ketchup bottle over there at Heinz Field anymore. It looks like we got Cory back. Welcome back, Cory. We'll get to Cory here in a second. But the Steelers got booed by their own fans. Got booed. Renegade got booed. The song got booed. The tradition got booed. They were screaming "Fire Mike Tomlin" and everything. So let me play this clip right here so y'all can hear what I'm talking about.
They are doing it! Oh my God!
All right, so there you heard people actually booing Renegade, which is insane. I've never heard it. I've definitely heard the "Fire Mike Tomlin" chants before. It's been a struggle for the Steelers and especially their offense. Let's take a look at some stats here. And honestly, the passing hasn't looked all that great over the last 5 weeks. Over the last 5 weeks, not even at 1,000 passing yards, which I find is a big surprise, especially with Aaron Rodgers. Over 5 weeks, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Not the greatest. The rushing attack has looked abysmal for the most part. 4 rushing touchdowns over the last 5 games. Honestly, Kenneth Gainwell, in my opinion, has been probably our best offensive player over the last couple of weeks. Darnell Washington as well, but we don't use him enough. I feel like we should use Darnell Washington a little bit more. But the big stat that I have here is no big plays. In the last 5 weeks, in-air passes over 20 yards. So the ball has to travel 20 yards in the air. The Steelers are 0 for 10 on passes over 20 yards and 2 interceptions. And this was even the crazier stat. Only 2 carries over 15 yards. Only 2 carries over 15 yards in the last 5 weeks. 2, Cory. What? How? How does that happen?
Crazy. I don't know, man. That's crazy. I swear, I feel like your running backs are decent, though. I mean, is it an O-line issue, you think, or is it just play calling?
I think it's play calling. I've Arthur Smith, the former head coach of the Falcons. I think he was doing a really good job at the beginning of the season. I feel like he's just gotten really stale. And I feel like when things are really hitting on the offense, we ain't trying to hit on it. And I kind of noted that a second ago with Darnell Washington, Mount Washington, who's just a mountain of a man. I think he's like, what, 6'8" or 6'7" or something, over 300 pounds. Anytime he gets the ball, he breaks like 5 tackles. Like, we need to give him the ball more. We give him the ball at most 2 times a game at the most. Kenneth Gainwell, he's electric. He's a playmaker. He reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara. That's who he reminds me of. I really like Kenny G playing his sweet music. Kenneth Gainwell, I'm a big fan of him. I think he's a big time playmaker. Jaylen Warren, he's definitely a good running back. Haven't seen enough out of Caleb Johnson, the rookie back out of Kansas State. Haven't seen quite enough of him ever since he had that issue on the kick return. We've been kind of weary of using him over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've definitely seen more Caleb Johnson than I ever have, so hopefully we can see him in the lineup a little more because he was really great in college, so I want to see what he can do in the NFL, and I think he's faced enough punishment at this point. Let's let him play a little bit. Because I don't know, the offense is awful. Our offense looks horrible. It looks horrible at all edges. And honestly, with Aaron Rodgers' injury, he's obviously very hurt. He just turned 42 yesterday. I think his birthday was yesterday. He just turned 42 years old. And with his injuries, he did not look very good this past weekend. Mason Rudolph went in for 2 plays and threw an interception. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. It's Will Howard time. Play Will Howard. I want him, at this point, start him. Make him starting quarterback. That might be a big overreaction. I don't know, but I want Will Howard. I'm over it. I'm not even necessarily over Rodgers. Rodgers actually playing very good, especially if you look at his stats. I think he has 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's like top 5 in touchdowns. He's having a good year, but he is very hurt. Aaron Rodgers is very, this reminds me of Big Ben hurt. He is that level of, he's hurt. He should not be playing. He's that injured. But he's a tough motherfucker, and I respect the crap out of Aaron Rodgers. And if Aaron Rodgers says he wants to play, I'm going to let him play, But I think I think it's his time. I want to see Will Howard out there. That's just my opinion. I don't want to see Mason Rudolph play another snap for the next couple of weeks. And this is no offense to Mason Rudolph. I've said it many times. If we're up to me, the Rooneys, the owners of the Steelers, sign Mason Rudolph to a lifetime contract. I'm down for that. Sign Mason Rudolph to a lifetime contract as the backup. I don't want him to be a starting. He's not a starting quarterback. He's not a starting quarterback. He came in for 2 plays, tried to make a big play, threw an interception on the sideline immediately, and I think he actually came in for another play or 2 actually, because I remember him almost throwing another interception to the exact same spot, pretty much the exact same play, and it got dropped. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm getting really frustrated as a Steelers fan, and I like Mike Tomlin too. I'm a big fan of Mike Tomlin. Because I feel like every year, at some point during the year, a lot of the Steelers fan base is calling down to fire Mike Tomlin. It happens every year, every single year, and I'm always the guy that defends Mike Tomlin. And at this point, I'm not going to say we should fire him. I think he should coach out the rest of the year. He deserves that. He's earned that, and the Steelers don't do that. But in my opinion, we should separate with Mike Tomlin at the end of the year, in my opinion, unless we're able to figure it out over these next couple of weeks. If we win out the rest of our games, fine, fuck it. But if we continue on this 1 week we're good, 1 week we're bad sort of stuff, I'm all for us looking to trade Mike Tomlin in the offseason or firing Mike Tomlin in the offseason. And I think that'd be better for both sides. I think Mike Tomlin probably wants to move on to something new. I feel like we want to move on to something new. And I think this is the first time I've ever said this. First time I've ever said this with Mike Tomlin. I'm a big fan of Mike Tomlin. And I think he's still an amazing coach. I just think sometimes two sides just got to separate. I think it just happens. It just happens sometimes. I think it's came to that point. What do you think about that, Cory? About what do you think about Mike Tomlin as a head coach, and the Steelers head coach in particular?
I don't know. It's one of the most successful head coaches ever.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? I mean, just so I don't know. Ending it on bad terms like that would suck. But I'm with you. I think if Aaron Rodgers wants to play, you play him. But if he gets hurt or if he has a bad first half or whatever, you throw Will Howard in. I would make Mason Rudolph the third quarterback going forward. And I also can see the point of view of trying to give Will Howard a whole year to learn, but because it's worked out for a couple quarterbacks doing that. But they didn't invest high draft capital in him. So to think of Will Howard in that light, unless that's what the Steelers are thinking behind closed doors, I think it'd be wrong or wishful thinking to think that's what's happening. So I don't know. I'm with you. I think if Aaron Rodgers isn't healthy, Will Howard should start this week, and then you should give him a shot. But it's not like the thing that's awkward is if you guys were 3-9, it's obviously, hey, Will Howard, you're starting next week. But because they're still fighting for a playoff spot, they're going to be looking at Aaron Rodgers. They're going to be looking at Aaron Rodgers like, hey, you can still lead us. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing they're fighting for. You want to develop Will Howard, which rightfully so, as a fan of the future, that's the right way to think. But they're still thinking that they can win a Super Bowl this year, and that's how they need to operate. You can't operate as a head coach going, well, we're 6-6, tied for the division lead. Let's throw in the towel. You know what I mean? We're not tied for the. Are you guys tied for the division lead?
Yeah, we are.
You guys were, right?
We are. Yep.
Yeah. So that's where they are. If they lose this week, I think you throw in the towel. But even then, they never would. No. I just don't see Will Howard starting this year. I think you better hope they are thinking of Will Howard the way you were thinking of Will Howard. That's honestly what you need to hope right now.
I don't know. I saw a lot of special things on that college football playoff run. And this comes from somebody who I hate Ohio State. Ohio State was probably my least favorite college football team up until this week with Lane Kiffin going to LSU. So LSU might be my least favorite college football team now. But I hate Ohio State. And they were playing against my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And I was just watching Will Howard. And he was just, this kid's great. And he reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger. Reminds me of Josh Allen a little bit too. I don't know. I think he'd be great for the Steelers. But like you said, I don't know how the Steelers look at him. I don't know how they view him. I'm not sure. Do they view him as an heir to Aaron Rodgers? Do they just view him as a rookie quarterback who's taking up a roster spot? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they look at him, but that's how I look at him. I think he can be a starter in the NFL. That's personally how I look at him. But I would assume there's probably not a lot of people that look at him like that. But the real question is, do the Steelers look at him like that? We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with that for sure. But before I let you go here, Cory, I do want to briefly talk about. We don't usually talk about NASCAR stuff on this podcast. This is mainly for other sports. But if there is a big NASCAR story that I feel like everybody should know about, we will kind of briefly talk about it on this show as well, and that is this court case going on right now between NASCAR 2311 Racing, which is of course owned by Denny Hamlin, and Michael Jordan, Curtis Polk, and there's a bunch of other people involved in that as well. And then you have Front Row Motorsports, owned by Bob Jenkins, and the court case has been going on all week, and it's been full of drama, full of chaos. It's honestly been going slow from what it sounds like with the judge. There's been some drama definitely in there. And Cory, just give me your quick thoughts on what's been going on with this court case so far. It could be a very long court case that could change the whole trajectory of NASCAR, change up the whole sport.
Honestly, the more I hear about it, the more I read into it, the more infuriating it is. Because, like, we've heard whispers of how and the sport is too expensive, teams don't make a lot of money. Obviously, the drivers get their money, but, like, teams aren't making money. And this court case is opening up all the drama, and it's making it just look so dirty and sketchy as a sport.
Yeah.
Leadership
wise, yeah.
You know what I mean? Leadership wise. And seeing them talk crap about the owners and then hearing them, they're summarizing the day in court each day on X, which you should go see. Bob Pockris, Jeff Gluck, all them. And it's just nasty because you have Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan and
Bob Jenkins,
Front Row Motorsports owner Bob Jenkins. They're pleading like, we want to be a part of this sport, but they're not budging on anything. It's just, well, you're not getting that. So they moved to fight for something else. And then today and the last few days, they're sitting there like, well, why haven't you guys asked for this since 2016? Because you said there was no negotiating on it. And then NASCAR is going, well, they make money outside of the sport. Why should we make them earn money with us? And it's just so. They say they're not a monopoly, but everything they argue is about something outside of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it's irritating me because I'm sitting there like, why are you concerned about Bob Jenkins' income outside of the sport? It's the sport we're talking about right now. You can't talk about someone else's income outside of your workplace and be saying and bitch about how you're not a monopoly and how they stomped on SRX and were worried about SRX being too close to NASCAR. And I don't know, man, it's a lot of drama and dirt, and it just makes NASCAR look evil. And the fan base they've created, the rednecks, the hillbillies, the NASCAR racing fans, the people that just love American ingenuity and racing in general, are built off family and built off the drivers getting to know us and the drivers being so nice and the drivers like personalities. But then you see the evil owners up top and what they have to deal with, and it just leaves a bitter, disgusting taste in my mouth. That, like, it's crazy to say you're a fan of that evil head. That's what I've been thinking about today. Is I'm like, dude, that's the shit they're arguing about in court. It's hard to not think that's evil. You know what I mean? I know that's just. I know I'm taking it to like the 10th notch, but to me, it's just they have no leg to stand on for me.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it right now, and I will get into an in-depth conversation about this or talk about this on X and YouTube on either Friday night or Saturday morning. Not sure if Tyler will join me for that. It might be a solo move. But I personally haven't been very appreciative of I know they're lawyers, they're doing their job, and that's what they're supposed to do. But the NASCAR lawyers are just really, in my opinion, just being super scummy. And that's a lot of lawyers. That's what you're supposed to do as a lawyer, you know? That's their job. But they're just really painting Denny and Bob Jenkins in a real interesting way, or at least they're attempting to. And it looks like they were not able to pull that off with Denny, but from what I heard, Denny didn't react very well to their lawyers. But Bob Jenkins, from what I heard, it almost sounded like he was getting bullied on the stand almost.
Yep.
So very interesting, dramatic stuff.
The NASCAR's whole argument is, you make so much money outside of the sport. Why do you care? You're rich. Why should you care?
Yeah, that was wild.
That's literally like what. That's what they've been painting this last 3 days, is just arguing. Well, this is how much you make out there. Hey, Danny Hamlin, you make $14 million. Why do your drivers not get paid that much? Because they don't win as much as me. Like,
yeah, I love that.
They just keep talking about how much money they make and not about what's wrong with the sport. Yeah. And I mean, one person I think about is Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart left angry. The driver, and I almost feel like that's slowly going to become Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
They're going to push. I mean, now they're suing. Now they're suing each other, so it's obviously going to happen down the road at some point. But it's it was the signs were on the wall when Tony left the way he did.
Yeah, it's just going to get more dramatic. This could go on for potentially a couple of weeks. We'll have to see how long it goes on for. The judge actually wanted it to be hurried up. He might even ask the questions now. From what I heard, he might start asking the questions because he just wants it to all get sped up. He thinks it's being too dramatic and too spread out or whatever because people are on the stand for too long. But yeah, like I said before, if you want to have a more in-depth conversation about this on Friday night or Saturday morning, check for updates on Instagram and Twitter. I'm going to have either a solo or maybe with Tyler, hopefully with Tyler as well, but it could potentially be solo where I'm going to just kind of go through some things that I found interesting about NASCAR 2311 and Front Row Motorsports versus the higher ups over at NASCAR. So we'll have a bigger talk about that on Friday or Saturday. But I did feel like even if you don't watch NASCAR, this is something you should pay attention to somewhat because it could change the whole entire sport of NASCAR. It could potentially get split into two. Michael Jordan, who's, in my opinion, probably the best athlete of all time, he's involved in this, and he might not be an owner anymore after all this for whatever reason. Who knows? And he's in the courtroom every day as well, Michael Jordan. So very interesting stuff for sure that I think a lot of people should keep up with this court case, whether you are a fan of NASCAR or not. But before we let you go, Cory, anything you're interested in watching this weekend? What we got going on this weekend?
And there's a lot of good NFL games. That's what I'm looking for. I want to go watch the Lions game right now and see who wins out of this matchup. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's a big matchup here tonight. Lions, Cowboys. Pretty much whoever loses is, I wouldn't say out of the playoffs, but it'd make it very difficult. But I appreciate you tuning in, Cory. We'll see you later.
Peace. You guys have a good one.
Peace out. All right, that was Cory Wallbanger, which will let me move on to my solo stuff. Time for my college football talk. I like to do this every week. Have my own college football talk. I know that Cory and Tyler don't really watch a lot of college football and don't know a lot about college football, but this is my time. My time is here now. Let's talk a little bit of college football because last time I was on, there was a lot of speculation about Lane Kiffin and where Lane Kiffin could potentially go. Was he going to go to Florida? Was he going to stay with Ole Miss? Or was he going to go to Louisiana State University, LSU, for the Tigers? And he ended up deciding that. Lane Kiffin decided to go to LSU. It got very, very messy for sure. One of the things that did also kind of start all this, and why am I forgetting his name? Now I got to look up his name. What is it? Ben? Damn it. Now I can't remember his name right now. I got to look it up real quick. But Ben, I give all the respect to Ben. He called, what did he call him? He quoted a song, was like, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife or something like that. I was like, well, that's a bar right there. Ben Garrett. That's what I thought it was. So, at Spirit Ben Garrett, he does an Ole Miss podcast. He does I think it's called Spirit of Ole Miss. I actually watched the most recent episode yesterday or the day before. Very good podcast. And apparently on the podcast, he mentioned a bar saying you can't turn a hoe into a housewife, referencing Lane Kiffin and talking about what's going on with Lane Kiffin. And because Lane Kiffin has a big time history of doing this and pretty much deserting teams before. He did it with Tennessee, did it with USC, and he's been at Ole Miss the last couple of years. This is his 6th season with Ole Miss, and this is the best Ole Miss has ever been. Looks like they're probably going to the college football playoffs because they don't have another game, and they're currently ranked 6th, so it looks like they're most likely going to have their first trip to the college football playoffs. It's the first time they've gotten this many wins in a regular season. Like I said, it's the best Ole Miss have ever been. And Lane Kiffin decided to take the job at LSU, and he wanted his cake and eat it too, which a couple of coaches are pulling this off. A couple of coaches have taken jobs at other places and are still allowed to coach their team if they make the college football playoff. But the big difference is Lane Kiffin's leaving for a team in his own conference, an arch rival in LSU, who also battles out for the same recruits. They battle out for a lot of the same recruits because they're in the same area in the country. Their states border one another. So I knew that was never going to happen. Lane Kiffin wasn't going to be able to coach his team. Lane Kiffin then also saying a bunch of stuff. He also said the team wanted him. The team wanted him to coach. All the players still wanted him to coach. He said in his statement and everything. And some players, not a lot, I think a couple of players came out and said that was a lie. So maybe he told a couple of players that. Maybe a couple of players told him that, or maybe it was a flat out lie. Don't know. I feel bad for the Ole Miss fans, but I was talking about Ben Garrett. I did want to play this clip because this has happened between now and the last time I was on. Went pretty viral of Lane Kiffin approaching Ben Garrett.
Oh. So you want to walk in here and call me a hoe? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, very, very interesting clip there for sure. I respected Lane for doing that. I definitely did respect Lane Kiffin for doing that. I don't know. That's one of the things I did like about Lane Kiffin. And I still kind of respect that about Lane Kiffin. Obviously, I have a different view on Lane Kiffin after everything has happened over the last week. But that's one thing I do respect about him. He speaks his mind, and he's not afraid to say what he feels. And he also just does that on Twitter a lot. He's a bit of a troll, for sure. Very funny dude. So I definitely respected him doing that. It was interesting. It was definitely interesting for him to do that. Him walking past Ben Garrett and then turning around and coming back and saying that. Found that very interesting. I found it even more interesting that Ben Garrett isn't like this. He's a popular Ole Miss podcast, but I think it's called Spirit of Ole Miss. My bad if I'm getting that incorrect. But it's not like this podcast that gets like hundreds of thousands of listens. It gets a couple of thousands of listens every episode. So that Lane Kiffin's listening to everybody. He's paying attention to what everybody's talking about. Who knows? He might even watch this video. He might watch me talk about him. And I think Lane Kiffin's one of the best coaches in college football, maybe one of the best coaches in football, period. But what he did to Ole Miss, and it's also the system. The system has its blame as well. But what he did to Ole Miss was definitely screwed up. Him waiting it out. Because I think he was waiting it out for both. I think he decided on LSU a while ago. I don't think he decided on him going to LSU on Sunday morning or Saturday night. I think he decided on going to LSU a long time ago. But I think he wanted to figure out where Ole Miss was going to go, where they're going to make the playoff, where they're going to make the SEC championship, and then he was going to figure out if he was going to be able to coach that team. And I think he probably assumed that he was going to be allowed to coach that team, even though he's going to an arch rival like LSU. I didn't like the way he handled the process at all. Lane Kiffin didn't handle the process at all well, and the Ole Miss fans let him know about that right here. Yeah, a lot of very, very upset Ole Miss fans, and like I said, my opinion has changed completely on Lane Kiffin over the last week, because I said it a little bit earlier in the show when we were talking about the NFL with Lane Kiffin. I watched college football back then when he was at Tennessee and when he was at USC, but I wasn't in depth with college football. I wasn't watching it every weekend. I would watch the big games. I would kind of treat college football back then like how I treat the NBA or the NHL now. The NBA and the NHL, what I do, I'll watch my favorite teams, and then I'll tune in when we get to the playoffs. So back then, I would watch Virginia Tech. I would watch West Virginia. I would watch Notre Dame. I would watch like the ACC championship and the big bowl games. And that was really it. I didn't watch every single week of college football. So I didn't really know much about the Lane Kiffin drama. I definitely had heard about the Lane Kiffin drama, but didn't really know a lot about it and didn't really think too negatively of Lane Kiffin because of it. But because of everything that's happened over the last week and the system and the way the schedules line up and the transfer window and National Signing Day and all that stuff definitely plays a very, very big factor into all of it. So Lane Kiffin isn't 100% to blame, but he could have handled everything very, very different. Ole Miss ended up pushing his clothes out to the street. Lane Kiffin left his freaking dog at Ole Miss, Juice Kiffin. Finally, it sounds like Juice is finally going to go join his daddy, Lane, in Louisiana. I found that very crazy, leaving your dog behind. Charlie Weiss Jr. joined on the plane I just showed in that clip a second ago. Some of you that are listening on Spotify obviously couldn't see that clip, but the clip I showed a second ago, Charlie Weiss Jr. also did get on that plane as well and is joining the LSU staff, and Ole Miss is letting him continue his role as offensive coordinator throughout the college football playoffs if they do. And I think they are in the college football playoffs. It just hasn't been official yet, but I think they are into the college football playoffs, and he has been given permission to coach Ole Miss throughout the college football playoffs, and Ole Miss is going to let him do it. And I understand that a lot more compared to Lane Kiffin because Charlie Weiss Jr. is not the head coach. I don't know. I think there's a lot of opinions on Lane right now. The LSU fans are hyped, and they deserve to be hyped. They got potentially the best coach in college football, one of the best coaches for sure in college football, a great personality. And honestly, Lane Kiffin's personality and the way he is honestly a perfect fit for LSU and their fan base. He's a perfect fit over there. But to just desert Ole Miss, because I was saying it last week, if he stays at Ole Miss, he'll probably go down as the greatest coach in Ole Miss Rebels history, will become a legend, will probably get a statue built after him, maybe even get the whole stadium named after him if he continues what he's doing over there at Ole Miss. If he does what he's doing at Ole Miss at LSU, he's just another LSU great coach. There's been a lot of great coaches. He's not going to stand out by any means unless he goes out there and wins 1, 2, 3, 4, like a bunch of national championships. And I get a lot of the reasons why he went there. Like, you're going to have a better recruiting class for sure. You're always going to have a better recruiting class at LSU because of the state, because of there being so many LSU fans. It makes sense to have the better recruiting class. But with the way the NIL and everything is now, Ole Miss could be right there. Ole Miss could be right there on LSU's tail every single year, especially with Lane Kiffin as the coach. And then, so that makes it a lot easier when it comes to the recruiting for him. It makes it a lot easier. He doesn't have to do as much work in the transfer window as well, because I knew that was a big thing for him. He had to do a lot of work in the transfer window for Ole Miss, and he considers himself the greatest recruiter for the transfer window, I guess you could say. That's what he considers himself. So he doesn't have to do that quite as much now in LSU. He's just going to have automatically a bunch of 5-stars joining the team, even if he doesn't say anything to them, because they lived in Louisiana their whole life and they've grown up big LSU fans their whole life, because LSU is one of the most popular college football teams in the entire country and they're a big-time brand. So I get the reasons for making the move, but you could have been the greatest person ever associated with Ole Miss and became immortal essentially at Ole Miss. And I think that's pretty much impossible at LSU, no matter how well he does. It's pretty much impossible for him to become immortal over there. So, but that's just my take. But they did have to replace. They did have to replace Lane Kiffin over at Ole Miss, and they replaced him with the defensive coordinator of Pete Golding, who the team seemed to be very fond of. I haven't really heard too much of Pete Golding before this. And honestly, the Ole Miss defense isn't one of the best in the nation, but they are a very strong defense for sure. But it seems like the team really loves him. The team really rallied around him. And just taking a look at him and hearing him talk and everything, I'm like, this guy seems like an Ole Miss Rebels coach. He seems like the perfect fit for when just the way he talks and the way he looks and the way he acts and the fact that he's a defensive-minded coach. It seems like he's a perfect coach for the SEC. And Ole Miss maybe he's the guy. Maybe he's able to lead these guys on a run. But that wasn't the only thing happening in the coaching carousel. There was a bunch of things happening in the coaching carousel unless you're a fan of Penn State, who still have not found their head coach. They have fallen outside the top 100 in recruiting. Them and Virginia Tech have pretty much switch spots in recruiting. Virginia Tech doing great in recruiting right now. Penn State's like 125 or 130 or something in recruiting. They are struggling hard, primarily because they don't have a coach. No one wants to coach for Penn State, apparently, but we've had a bunch of changes in the coaching carousel over the last couple of days. One of the big ones was Sataki over at BYU actually staying, because it was rumored around a week ago that he was actually going to make the move over to Penn State. And the guy that owns Crumble Cookies, came in and saved the day and put down a bunch of money and had Sataki stay over there in BYU. He's done a great job over there. Arkansas were able to get Silverfield. Auburn were able to find their guy in Golish. Florida able to find their guy over at Tulane. He's going to be allowed to coach. Sermal is able to. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Sumrall. That's his name. Sumrall. There it is. Sumrall. That's Sumrall. But he's going to be allowed to coach them in the college football playoff as well. Michigan State found their guy in Fitzgerald. UCLA and Chesney. Kentucky got themselves a good coach, I think, with the offensive coordinator of Will Stein. He's going to get a job over there. He's going to be able to still be the coordinator for Oregon for the college football playoffs as well. North Texas taking in my opinion, taking a risk on Neil Brown. I saw what Neil Brown did over at West Virginia before Rich Rod came in. I didn't think he did a great job, but he's been the assistant over at Texas, so maybe he's impressed them over there. And one thing that isn't on this graphic, because it pretty much dropped right before we ended up going live here, was Billy Napier. It sounds like Billy Napier is actually going to jump over to and actually replace Summerall over at Tulane. It sounds like that's what's going to happen. So Napier and Summerall are going to pretty much switch spots. Napier, of course, getting fired from Florida. Looks like he's going to move over to Tulane. So that job sounds like, not Tulane. Why am I saying Tulane? James Madison. That's my bad. That's my mistake on that. This is why I needed it in front of me, because I was like, wait, that's not right. James Madison. So he will actually be moving over to James Madison, and we've seen a bunch of great coaches over at James Madison. That's where Chesney comes from, Bob Chesney over at UCLA, now being the new coach over there. So James Madison getting themselves potentially another really good coach with Billy Napier. All right, so let me take down this graphic right here. But yeah, Penn State need to find themselves a coach. It's been a real difficult time for Penn State need to find themselves a coach. They do not have themselves a coach yet. I can't believe it. Because James Franklin was fired so long ago. The fact that they haven't found a coach, and Brian Hartline actually joined South Florida today. That's another one as well. The fact they haven't found a coach over for the Nittany Lions, the fact that their recruiting has fallen as low as it has, something very turmoil is going on over there at Penn State. I know they have a bunch of big donors and they have a bunch of money over there at Penn State. It was talked about a lot during the offseason. To see this happening is insane over at Penn State. I don't know what they're going to look like next year. I think Terry Smith, I'm pretty sure that's the interim head coach right now. Terry Smith, I think, has done a fantastic job, and maybe that's why maybe they're fine with Terry Smith being their head coach, because I think he's done a great job. I think Terry's done a great job with Penn State, and it looks like they're going to get into a bowl game, which a couple of weeks ago seemed impossible, and they almost took down Indiana. They almost gave Indiana their first loss, so they've actually looked good the last couple of weeks. So maybe Terry's their guy. Who knows? Penn State need to figure it out, though. They're very, very, very late on the coaching carousel. Extremely late on the coaching carousel. All right, but let's move on to the big talking points, the big topics, I'd say, this week, and that's the college football playoff and the Heisman race. Let's get to the Heisman race. I have my own personal battle on who I think are the four that should go to New York City. There's four players I personally have in mind to go to New York City, and here's the four players I personally have in mind for going to New York City to compete for the Heisman. Fernando Mendoza over in Indiana. I think he's had a very good season. I don't think he's had like this amazing like world breaking season or anything like that, but he's just been very consistent. He doesn't make too many dumb decisions. He's very consistent, and for me, he already looks like a pro. He looks like a pro ready quarterback for me. The way Mendoza talks too, I love the way he talks. He's a very smart kid. I think this kid's already a pro ready quarterback, and I think he's going to be highly sought after in the NFL draft in April. Diego Pavia. I think out of the 3 quarterbacks that I have in this Heisman 4 right here, I think he's probably the worst quarterback out of the 3, but he's by far the biggest playmaker. He makes so many plays with his legs. He has 9 rushing touchdowns. Mendoza has 6, while Julian Sayin has 0 rushing touchdowns and only 27 rushing yards. But Diego Pavia is a playmaker. He's also doing it with a team that we wouldn't expect to really be very competitive. And you could maybe say the same thing with Fernando Mendoza, but Coach Sig has done so much with Indiana in his very short time. Diego Pavia has kind of bursted onto the scene. I know he's a little bit older, but he's been just a huge playmaker this season. He did pretty well last year too, but he's just been he's been an amazing playmaker this season, and especially over the last couple of weeks. A couple of weeks ago, he had that 6 touchdown performance. He's been killing it the last couple of weeks. And then we'll get to Julian Sayin, which I briefly talked about a second ago. He's a great quarterback as well. I think he's a very pro-ready quarterback as well, along with Mendoza. I think the only knock I'd really have on Sayin, and also along with Mendoza, is both Ohio State and Indiana haven't played a bunch of tough teams. They haven't played a lot of great teams this year. They've both played Oregon, and that's really about it. They haven't really played a bunch of great teams this year, Ohio State and Indiana, and haven't played a bunch of great defenses this year. So that's probably the biggest knock, and that's not even really a knock on them. They can't control who they play. It's not really a knock on them. It's just the only knock I think some people may give them, and it's the only caveat, personally, I would put in there, that they haven't really played a bunch of fantastic defenses this season. But Julian Sayin looks fantastic. Like, his stat lines are amazing. He has almost 80% completion percentage. He has 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's had a fantastic year, Julian Sayin. Another quarterback that it isn't on these Heisman favorites that I have here that I did want to name was the UConn quarterback. For some reason, I was literally just thinking of his name a second ago, and his name's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't remember it right now for some reason. But he's a little bit older as well. I think he played for Albany up in Maine, and then moved over to UConn a couple of years ago. He's balling. I think he has 28 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's amazing. I think he's amazing, and I think he should really be taken a look at when it comes to the NFL draft. I don't think anybody's talking about him. But my 4th Heisman favorite that I have is Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker out of Texas Tech. And I've heard a lot of talk about him over the last couple of weeks. And I think a week or 2 ago, I took like a brief glance at his stats, and I was like, okay, his stats are pretty good. And I've seen him play, and I'm like, this guy is a game wrecker. He's definitely the best defensive player I've seen in college football this season. He's definitely a game wrecker. And I saw his stats. I'm like, his stats are good, but is this Heisman Trophy worthy? And then I actually looked more into it. I guess I just didn't look closely enough. But he has 7 forced fumbles. That's insane. 7 forced fumbles on the year, 4 interceptions, 98 total tackles, and he has a defensive touchdown. Those are very stellar stats. Those are very stellar stats, especially keeping in mind that he's a linebacker with 4 interceptions. 4 interceptions for a linebacker is really good. This guy obviously has great football IQ. Jacob Rodriguez reminds me a lot of Manti Te'o when he was at Notre Dame. I think that's who this guy reminds me of the most. He's the captain of the defense. And the coach talks so highly of him. The coach loves him. I think Jacob Rodriguez is a guy, and I think he deserves to go to New York City. I think he should be the 4th. I would put him over Jeremiah Love personally. I don't think a lot of people would agree with that. I think most people would probably put Jeremiah Love in their 4. I think they would probably have Mendoza, Pavia, Sayin, and then Jeremiah Love would probably, the running back out of Notre Dame, would probably be that 4th. And this comes from a Notre Dame fan. I like Notre Dame. But personally, I would probably put Rodriguez in there. I think Rodriguez deserves it. I think he's had a fantastic season, and he's been the leader of that team on the defense. Okay, so those are my Heisman favorites. Anybody, just let me know who your Heisman favorites are. Do you have the same 4 as I do? But let me move on to the college football playoffs, because we did have the rankings released, and we have a new bracket right here in front of you if you're watching. If not, we have 10 out of the 12 spots essentially decided at the moment. Well, based on current rankings, I should say. In my opinion, I think there's a couple of teams that are already like 100. I think there's a handful of teams that are already 100% locked in my opinion, no matter what happens over the weekend. And the teams I would consider 100% locked in, no matter what happens in the conference championship games, are Ohio State at number 1, Indiana at number 2, Georgia at number 3, Texas Tech at number 4, Oregon at number 5, Ole Miss at number 6, and Texas A&M at number 7, and also Oklahoma actually at number 8. Ohio State and Indiana, they're both undefeated heading into this Big Ten championship game. They're both locked in my opinion. Georgia has had a phenomenal season. The only loss they have on their record was to Bama. They've had a fantastic season. Texas Tech have been amazing. I think their only loss on the season was to BYU, and then they play BYU in the Big 12 championship. So even if BYU wins big, I think Texas Tech are automatically locked in. Unless BYU win by like 40 points or something like that, which is pretty much impossible. Even if BYU wins by like 2 or 3 scores, Texas Tech, I think, are locked into the playoff. Then we'll move on to Oregon at number 5. Oregon aren't playing in a conference championship game. They've had a fantastic season. They're already locked in my opinion. And I would say the exact same thing for Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. They're all not in conference championship games, and they've all had phenomenal seasons. All right, but now we'll move on to Bama and Notre Dame. And I don't think either of these teams, I think both these teams are really on the edge here, especially with Miami looking to get in for Notre Dame. That can be very interesting. We have 2 conference championship spots that aren't currently decided for at number 11 and number 12. I think it gets very interesting over the weekend, because for the ACC championship especially, there's a good chance we're not going to have an ACC champion in the college football playoff. We have Duke versus UVA versus Virginia on Saturday night. And Virginia, I'm a Virginia Tech fan, so I watch a lot of Virginia football as well, with Virginia being the rivals of Virginia Tech. And I don't think UVA are that great of a football team. I think this is definitely the best year they've had. I definitely think this has been the best year for UVA, but they are just so up and down, and most of the time they're playing down to competition. Of course, they didn't do that with Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech, this is the worst year, in my opinion, Virginia Tech have had this century. This has been a horrible year for Virginia Tech, but UVA just been so up and down. They play down to their competition. They just have not, in my opinion, haven't looked as good as their record proclaims they are. Most of their wins are one possession wins, less than one possession, like just a couple of points winning a lot of these games. I don't have a good feeling about it. They're battling in Charlotte, which isn't too far from Duke. So I think Duke are really going to fill the place up, especially with Duke not usually being that successful at football. And Duke have not had a good season. They only have 7 wins. So if Duke wins, they're not going to get into the college football playoff, because some of you that are watching on YouTube or X, or watching the video version on Spotify, you could view this, but I pulled the graphic back up just to take a look at the matchups. But you have number 24, North Texas, versus number 20, Tulane for the American Championship on Friday night. One of those teams is going to outrank Duke for sure. No matter which team wins, one of those teams is going to outrank Duke. So that would automatically put Duke into that 5th conference championship spot. And then we also have another conference championship battle in the Sun Belt between Troy and James Madison. And James Madison are ranked 25 at the moment. So if Troy win, that could be a savior. If Troy win, then Duke I don't know what happens at that point. Maybe Duke gets in. If Troy beats James Madison, maybe Duke gets into the college football playoff. Like this is crazy stuff we're talking about here. But if James Madison wins, James Madison would keep the ACC out of the college football playoff. And this is all if Duke defeats UVA. And me personally, that is my prediction. I think Duke will beat UVA in the ACC championship. I think that will happen. I think Duke will win, which is gnarly. It's crazy to think about an ACC team not being in the college football playoff. But where it makes it interesting for a team like Notre Dame and like Alabama is that BYU Texas Tech matchup. And just to pull it back up just to know what day it is. Saturday at noon on ABC, we have the Big 12 Championship at Jerry World, the Cowboys Stadium, AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. If BYU is currently the first team on the outside of the playoff, ranked number 11. They are currently the first team looking to get into the college football playoff. If they beat Texas Tech, they will get into the college football playoff. And Texas Tech are not going to get eliminated. So they're going to have to eliminate either Bama or Notre Dame potentially for that spot. And then that also potentially gets Miami in the mix as well, because Miami is right behind BYU, which makes it very interesting as well. And it can get interesting no matter what way you look at that when it comes to Notre Dame, Alabama, and Miami. BYU wins. BYU moves in to the playoff and potentially knocks out either Notre Dame or Alabama. And then the other way around makes it interesting as well, because if Texas Tech would defeat BYU, then BYU is going to drop down the rankings, and that puts Miami at 11 and Notre Dame at 10. So that puts Notre Dame and Miami next to each other in the rankings, which would make it a big-time discussion point, because when they played earlier in the year, Miami did defeat Notre Dame. So very interesting stuff on how all that could happen. I think on Sunday is when they're going to announce the college football playoff bracket and who's making the college football playoff. Another team that I really feel like should be considered and really isn't being considered at all by the committee, and I feel like should be, I think there's a lot of great points, is Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt have had a fantastic season. They've lost to, their only losses are to really good opponents. They've had a fantastic year, and in my opinion, they should be above Miami, and maybe not in front of BYU, but in my opinion, they should be above Miami. I think they should be above Miami and probably even Notre Dame, but Notre Dame are in the college football playoff, and I'm a fan of Notre Dame. I understand it. A lot of people, Notre Dame are a big brand, and they've had some big wins as well, but I don't know. I don't know if Notre Dame have really earned it this year on getting to the college football playoff, but we'll have to see how all that unfolds over the weekend, and I'll probably get on and do some sort of college football talk, and I'll probably post it on here as like an emergency off-track sports episode where it's going to be just talking about college football, and it'll probably just be me because I'm the only one that watches college football out of me, Cory, and Tyler. So probably tune into that on maybe Sunday night, Monday morning, I'm thinking. It depends on how the Sunday night football game goes. But that'll do it. That'll do it for this week's edition of Off Track Sports. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, sorry this one was late. Verizon have been working on a cell tower that's not even 200 yards away from my house, and I haven't getting. Sometimes on my phone, it's been saying emergency calls only. The signal has been so bad, and luckily it came back today. It's still not 100%. Actually shat out a little bit earlier, right before I went live, and luckily it's kept on, I think, throughout this whole stream. I don't think it's dropped at all, which is very cool. I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, apologize on this coming out so late. This is being recorded on Thursday. Usually it would be recorded on Tuesday, and we're hoping to record them all on Tuesday in the future going forward. But I appreciate you tuning into this week's edition of Off Track Sports. Hopefully we'll have Tyler on next week. And like I said earlier, Cory will be in Mississippi for the next couple of weeks, so we won't see him probably on Off Track Sports, or on Hit the Pacecar, which is our prime show, our NASCAR discussion show. Probably won't be on that for the next couple of weeks, as well as he'll be in Mississippi. But hopefully we'll have Tyler back next week, and we'll have some off-track sports discussion, probably continue to discuss the Patriots and what they're doing and everything. But I appreciate anybody who took a listen, whether you're on Spotify or X or YouTube or wherever you're deciding to listen or watch off-track sports. We greatly appreciate it. We hope to continue this past the Super Bowl. If it's popular enough and we have enough fun with it, we hope to continue this podcast past the Super Bowl, but we'll lead you all the way up to the Super Bowl at least. We have the Olympics coming up. We have some fun things coming up. We have March Madness not too far away as well. But I appreciate anybody who did tune in to this week's edition of Off Track Sports, and we hope to see you again next week. And for Tyler Rhodes, for Cory Wallbanger, I'm Trackside Larry, and peace. Hopefully we'll see you next week. And go enjoy the games this weekend. We got some good ones going on. I'm about to go watch the Cowboys-Lions because that's currently going on right now as I'm recording this. So I will see y'all later. Goodbye.